Alex Reed had never seen so many different types of beings in one place. The transport shuttle carrying him to the Galactic Training Academy was filled with creatures that looked like they belonged in different worlds. Some had scales, others had feathers, and a few seemed to be made of living rock. All of them were young warriors chosen to train at the most respected military academy in known space. The human looked out the small window as they approached Nexus 7, the massive orbital station that housed the academy. Earth had only joined the galactic community 5 years ago, and this was the first time humans had been allowed to send recruits to the elite training program. Alex was one of only 12 humans selected from thousands of applicants. First time seeing real aliens? Asked Ben Cross, the human sitting next to him. Ben was shorter than Alex, but had the build of someone who had spent years in military training. Yeah, Alex replied, watching a group of bird-like creatures with sharp talons discuss something in high-pitched chirps. Back home, we only saw them in video calls with the Galactic Council. The shuttle docked with a soft bump, and all the recruits gathered their belongings. Alex carried only a small bag with basic items. He had learned in his years as a military engineer that traveling light was always better. Inside the station, the recruits were directed to a large assembly hall. The ceiling was so high that Alex could barely see the top. Hundreds of young beings from dozens of species filled the space, all wearing the same gray training uniforms that had been provided. "Welcome to the Galactic Training Academy," announced a tall, thin being with blue skin and 4 arms. "I am Commander Tala. For the next 6 months, you will be pushed to your limits and beyond. Many of you will not complete the program. Those who do will become certified warriors capable of serving in any military force in the galaxy." Alex noticed how the other recruits looked at the humans. Some seemed curious, others appeared dismissive. He had read the files during the journey. Humans were classified as deathworlders because Earth was considered unusually dangerous compared to most inhabited planets. This classification made other species either fear humans or assume they were primitive. Commander Tala continued explaining the rules and schedules. Training would begin at dawn each day with physical conditioning, followed by combat instruction, weapons training, and tactical studies. Failure to meet standards would result in immediate removal from the program. "Your instructors are veteran warriors from across the galaxy," she said. "They will teach you everything you need to know about fighting, survival, and working with other species. Show them respect and they will make you strong. Disrespect them, and you will be sent home in shame." After the assembly, the recruits were divided into training groups. Alex found himself assigned to Group 7, along with Ben and 10 other beings. Their instructor was waiting for them, and Training Base C Instructor Vorth was the largest being Alex had ever seen. The Saurian stood nearly 8 feet tall, with dark green scales covering his body and yellow eyes that seemed to see everything. His arms were thick as tree trunks, and his hands ended in claws that could probably tear through metal. "So these are my new students," Vorth said, his voice a low rumble that seemed to vibrate through the floor. "I see we have some Deathworlders this time," his yellow eyes fixed on Alex and Ben. How interesting. The first week of training was brutal. Every morning began with physical exercises that pushed everyone to their limits. Alex was used to hard work from his military background, but the alien exercises were designed for beings with different body types and strengths. Some things that were easy for the rock-like granite people were nearly impossible for humans, while other tasks that challenged the bird-like avians were simple for Earthborn recruits. Vorth seemed to take special interest in the humans. During combat drills, he would call Alex forward to demonstrate techniques. Each time the demonstration involved Alex being thrown, struck, or otherwise used as an example of what not to do. "Deathworlders think they are tough because they come from a dangerous planet," Vorth would say, after knocking Alex to the ground for the 3rd time in a session. "But toughness without skill is just stupidity with bruises." The other recruits began to see Alex as weak. He never fought back against Vorth's rough treatment, never complained, and never asked for easier assignments. To beings from species that valued shows of strength, this looked like cowardice. Ben tried to defend his friend after training one day. "Why don't you stand up to him?" he asked. "Everyone thinks humans are pushovers because you just take it." Alex was cleaning blood from a split lip that Vorth had given him during instruction on blocking techniques. "I'm learning," he said simply. "Learning what?" "How to get beaten up?" "Learning him," Alex replied. He had been watching Vorth carefully during every session. The Saurian had patterns in how he moved, preferences for certain attacks and habits that most people would not notice. Alex's engineering mind automatically analyzed problems, and to him, Vorth was just another problem to solve. The breaking point came during the third week. Alex had been paired with a young avian named Nira for a sparring exercise. The bird-like being was fast but not very strong, and Alex was being careful not to hurt her while they practiced. Vorth watched the careful sparring with growing anger. "This is not a dance," he roared. "This is combat training. Fight like you mean it." When Alex continued to hold back against his obviously weaker opponent, Vorth stepped into the ring. "I will show you how real warriors fight," he announced to the watching recruits. What followed was not instruction. Vorth attacked Alex with full force, using his size and strength advantages without any concern for safety. Alex tried to defend himself, but the Saurian was too big, too strong, and too experienced. The final blow came when Alex was already on the ground. Vorth's massive fist struck him directly in the face with a sound like breaking wood. Alex's nose shattered, and blood poured down his face as he lay motionless on the training mat. "This is what happens when soft deathworlders try to play with real warriors," Vorth announced to the silent training bay. "Perhaps now you humans will understand your place." Alex slowly sat up, blood dripping from his broken nose onto his gray uniform. He looked up at Vorth with eyes that showed no pain, no anger, and no fear. Just a cold, calculating attention that made the Saurian uncomfortable for reasons he could not explain. Alex stood up, wiped the blood from his face with his sleeve, and walked calmly out of the training bay without saying a word. Ben and Nira watched him go, both sensing that something important had just changed, though neither could say exactly what. News traveled fast through the enclosed world of Nexus 7. By dinner time, every recruit in the academy had heard about what happened to the human in Training Bay C. The story grew with each telling. Some said Vorth had beaten Alex unconscious. Others claimed the human had tried to attack the instructor and been properly disciplined. Alex sat alone in the medical bay while a Centaurian doctor used advanced healing technology to reset his broken nose. The blue-skinned physician worked quietly, occasionally glancing at Alex's calm expression with curiosity. "The pain medication will help with the discomfort," the doctor said, as he finished the procedure. "You should rest for at least 2 days before returning to physical training." "I'll be back tomorrow," Alex replied, testing how his nose felt. The healing technology had fixed the break, but his face was still swollen and discolored. "That is not advisable. Instructor Vorth hits very hard." Alex looked at the doctor with the same cold attention he had shown Vorth. "Yes, he does." The next morning, Alex returned to training as promised. His face was a collection of purple and yellow bruises, and white medical tape covered his nose, but he took his place in formation with the other recruits. Several alien beings stared at him with expressions ranging from pity to confusion. Vorth seemed surprised to see him. "I thought you would be hiding in the medical bay for a week," the Saurian rumbled. "I heal fast," Alex said simply. Training continued as normal, but Alex's behavior had changed in ways that only careful observers would notice. He still participated in all exercises and followed orders without complaint, but now he watched everything with the focused attention of someone conducting a detailed study. Ben noticed it first. During their free time, Alex would ask seemingly innocent questions about the station's layout, the instructor schedules, and the security systems. When Ben asked why, Alex simply said he was curious about how such a large facility operated. "You're planning something," Ben said one evening as they sat in their shared quarters. "I know that look. You had the same expression back on Earth when you were figuring out how to take apart that enemy bunker." Alex was reading a technical manual about the station's life support systems that he had borrowed from the library. "I'm just learning how things work here. Alex, if you're thinking about getting revenge on Vorth, it's a bad idea. He's twice your size and has been fighting for longer than we've been alive. Plus, attacking an instructor would get you thrown out of the academy and probably banned from ever serving in any galactic military." "I'm not planning to attack anyone," Alex said, turning a page in the manual. "I'm just educating myself." But Ben could see the careful way Alex studied the diagrams showing power distribution throughout the station, and the notes he made about maintenance schedules and security rotations. This was not casual reading. Nira, the young avian who had been sparring with Alex when Vorth intervened, also noticed the change. She began watching Alex during training sessions and saw how he observed Vorth's movements with the intensity of a predator studying prey. "Why do you watch the instructor so carefully?" she asked Alex one day during a break in weapons training. Alex was examining a maintenance access panel near the training bay entrance, though he made it look like he was just leaning against the wall. "I'm trying to understand how he fights. If I'm going to improve, I need to learn from the best." Nira tilted her feathered head to one side, a gesture that showed confusion in her species. "But he hurt you badly. Are you not angry?" "Anger is not useful," Alex replied. "Understanding is useful." The small avian felt a chill run through her feathers, though she could not explain why. Commander Tala had been informed about the incident in Training Bay C within hours of it happening. The Centaurian administrator reviewed the security footage and read the medical report, then called a meeting with the senior instructors. "Vorth's methods are becoming excessive," she told the group of veteran warriors. "Breaking a recruit's nose during a demonstration goes beyond acceptable training techniques." "The humans showed no proper fighting spirit," rumbled Korax, a massive being made of living stone. "Perhaps harsh treatment will awaken his warrior instincts. Or perhaps it will cause a diplomatic incident with Earth," Tala replied. "The humans are new to the galactic community, but they are also valuable allies. Their Deathworld background gives them unique capabilities that we need to understand, not simply dominate." Instructor Vorth shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The Deathworlder needed to learn respect. "I provided that lesson. And what did you learn from the experience?" Tala asked. The question confused Vorth. "I learned that humans are weak as expected." Tala studied the large saurian with her 4 eyes. "I see. Continue with standard training procedures, but no more demonstrations that result in serious injuries. The Academy's reputation depends on producing skilled warriors, not damaged recruits." The meeting ended, but Tala remained troubled by what she had seen in the security footage. The humans' reaction to being brutally beaten had been wrong somehow. There had been no fear, no rage, no pleading for mercy, just that cold, calculating stare that suggested Alex was solving a complex problem, rather than suffering a traumatic experience. Meanwhile, Alex continued his quiet research. He learned that Vorth often stayed late in the auxiliary training bays to review combat recordings and plan the next day's lessons. He discovered that the maintenance schedule called for routine systems checks in those same bays during the overnight shift. He studied saurian anatomy from the Academy's biological database, learning about their bone structure, joint movements, and pressure points. Most importantly, he calculated exact force requirements and leverage angles needed to cause specific types of damage to a saurian's body structure. 5 days after the incident that broke his nose, Alex made his final preparations. He submitted a routine maintenance request to check the environmental controls in Auxiliary Training Bay 7. The request was approved automatically, as it appeared to be standard preventive maintenance. That evening, Alex sat in his quarters cleaning his equipment and checking his calculations one more time. Ben watched nervously from his own bed. "You're really going to do this, aren't you?" Ben asked. Alex looked up from the technical drawings he had been studying. "I'm going to make sure Instructor Vorth learns something valuable about Deathworlders." "What if you get caught?" "I won't get caught," Alex said with quiet confidence. "I'm an engineer. I solve problems efficiently and leave no trace of how the solution was implemented." As the station's artificial night cycle began, Alex prepared to teach Vorth exactly why humans were classified as Deathworlders, and why that classification had nothing to do with their ability to survive harsh weather. The artificial night on Nexus 7 brought a different kind of quiet to the massive station. Most recruits were sleeping in their quarters, while night shift personnel maintained minimal operations. Security patrols followed predictable routes that Alex had memorized over the past week. At exactly 2:47 a.m., Alex slipped out of his quarters wearing standard maintenance coveralls he had borrowed from the supply depot. The corridors were dimly lit, and his soft-soled boots made no sound on the metal floors. Anyone who saw him would think he was just another technician doing routine overnight maintenance. Alex's first stop was the central maintenance station, where he accessed the environmental control system for the entire training section. His engineering background made the interface easy to understand, and his careful study of the station's blueprints told him exactly which systems to adjust. With a few simple commands, He created a minor malfunction in Auxiliary Training Base 7's air circulation system. Nothing dangerous, but enough to require immediate attention according to safety protocols. The system automatically locked down the bay and activated emergency isolation procedures. Alex then disabled the internal communication array for that section, making it appear as though the malfunction had damaged the communication equipment. Anyone inside the training bay would be unable to call for help until the malfunction was repaired. By 2:58 a.m., Alex was positioned outside Training Base 7, waiting. His research had shown that Instructor Vorth always arrived at 3 a.m. to review training recordings and prepare for the next day's lessons. The Saurian was obsessively punctual, a habit that Alex was counting on. Vorth arrived exactly on schedule, using his instructor access codes to enter the bay. The massive reptilian being never noticed the small figure that slipped in behind him, as the door sealed itself according to the emergency protocols that Alex had activated. "What is this?" Vorth muttered as he noticed the warning lights indicating environmental system problems. He moved toward the communication panel to report the issue and discovered that it was not functioning. "The air circulation system is experiencing a minor malfunction," Alex said calmly from behind him. "Nothing dangerous, but the safety protocols have isolated this section until repairs are completed." Vorth spun around, surprised to find one of his students in the training bay. "How did you get in here? This area is restricted during emergency conditions." "I'm performing the maintenance repairs," Alex replied, still speaking in the same calm tone he had used throughout his weeks of training. "As you can see, I'm properly equipped for the task." He gestured to his maintenance coveralls and the toolkit he carried. Something in Alex's manner made Vorth suspicious. The human was too calm, too confident. "You are not authorized to perform maintenance. Return to your quarters immediately." "I'm afraid I can't do that until the repairs are completed," Alex said, setting down his toolkit and facing the much larger being. "But don't worry. The repairs won't take long. Exactly 4 minutes and 37 seconds, according to my calculations." Vorth's yellow eyes narrowed as he realized this was not a coincidence. "You planned this. You deliberately created the situation." "Yes," Alex agreed. "You taught me that deathworlders need to learn respect. I decided it was time for me to return the favor and teach you something about deathworlders." The Saurian laughed, a sound like grinding stones. "You think you can threaten me, little human? I have been fighting since before you were born. You barely survived our last encounter." "That's true," Alex acknowledged. "But our last encounter was not a fight. It was you demonstrating your superior size and strength against someone who was not fighting back. This time will be different." Vorth moved forward with the confidence of someone who had never lost a physical confrontation. He was stronger, faster, and more experienced than any human. This would be over quickly. Alex did not retreat. Instead, he moved with the precise timing of someone who had studied his opponent's every movement for weeks. When Vorth threw his first punch, Alex was no longer where the punch was aimed. When the Saurian tried to grab him, Alex had already calculated the angle and moved to a position where Vorth's size worked against him. "You cannot run forever," Vorth growled, spinning to face Alex again. "I'm not running," Alex replied. "I'm positioning." The human's movements were economical and purposeful. He was not trying to match Vorth's strength or speed. Instead, he was using the Saurian's own momentum and reactions against him. Every time Vorth attacked, Alex guided the attack to where it would do the most damage to Vorth's balance and positioning. After 2 minutes of this careful maneuvering, Alex made his move. He had studied Saurian anatomy extensively and knew exactly where their joints were most vulnerable. When Vorth overextended on a particularly powerful swing, Alex struck with surgical precision at the nerve cluster behind the Saurian's right elbow. Vorth's arm went temporarily numb, and Alex immediately followed up with a calculated strike to the inside of Vorth's knee. The massive being stumbled, his weight working against him as Alex had planned. "How do you know these techniques?" Vorth demanded, shaking his head to clear it. "I read your species medical files," Alex replied matter-of-factly. "Also your personal combat recordings, your training schedules, and your movement patterns. I approached this as an engineering problem. You were the obstacle, and I needed to find the most efficient way to remove the obstacle." Vorth tried to use his remaining good arm to grab Alex, but the human was ready for this too. Alex moved inside the grab and struck upward with both hands, hitting specific pressure points that temporarily paralyzed Vorth's breathing. As the Saurian gasped for air, Alex positioned himself carefully and delivered a precise strike to Vorth's extended right arm. He had calculated the exact angle and force needed to fracture the bone at its weakest point while causing maximum damage to the surrounding joint structure. The sound of breaking bone echoed through the training bay, followed by Vorth's roar of pain and surprise. The massive instructor collapsed to one knee, clutching his shattered arm. "Why?" Vorth gasped, looking up at the human who stood calmly over him. "You wanted to teach me about respect," Alex said. "I learned that respect is earned through strength and skill. You demonstrated your strength. Now I've demonstrated mine." Alex checked his chronometer. 4 minutes and 37 seconds. Exactly as calculated. He gathered his tools and moved to the environmental control panel, quickly restoring normal operations to the training bay. The doors unlocked and the communication system came back online. "Someone will find you shortly," Alex told the injured Saurian. "I recommend telling them that you had an accident while reviewing combat techniques. The medical staff are very skilled. They should be able to repair most of the damage." Alex walked toward the exit, then paused and looked back at Vorth. "Oh, and instructor? The next time you want to teach a Deathworlder about respect, you might want to remember that we earned that classification by surviving things much more dangerous than you." By the time maintenance crews found Vorth 20 minutes later, Alex was back in his quarters, fast asleep. The tools he had used were cleaned and returned to their proper places, and there was no evidence that he had ever left his room. The lesson had been delivered with engineering precision, and Vorth would carry the results for the rest of his life. Emergency alarms woke half the station when the maintenance crew found Instructor Vorth unconscious in Auxiliary. Training Bay 7, the massive Saurian, was rushed to the medical center while security teams sealed off the area and began their investigation. Commander Tala arrived at the medical bay within minutes of being notified. She found the medical staff working frantically to save Vorth's mangled right arm. "How bad is it?" she asked Dr. Zenith, the chief medical officer. The insectoid physician's compound eyes reflected the harsh medical lighting as he worked. "Severe trauma to the right arm. Multiple fractures in a complex pattern that suggests deliberate targeting of structural weak points. Whoever did this knew exactly where to strike for maximum damage. Can you save the arm? We can rebuild it, but he will never have full function again." The bone was shattered with surgical precision, almost like someone calculated the exact force needed to cause this specific type of injury. Tala studied the readings on the medical displays. "What do you mean, calculated?" "Look at these scan results," Dr. Zenith said, pointing to a holographic image of Vorth's damaged arm. "The fractures follow stress lines in the bone structure. A random attack would cause random damage. This was engineered to cause maximum harm with minimum effort." Security Chief Corden, a heavily armored being from a warrior species, approached with his initial report. "The training bay shows signs of a minor environmental malfunction that was repaired around 320 hours. No signs of forced entry. No evidence of a struggle." "What does Vorth remember?" Tala asked. "He claims he was reviewing training recordings when the environmental system malfunctioned. He says he was trying to call for help when someone attacked him from behind. He never saw his attacker clearly." Tala's 4 eyes narrowed. "Someone with access to the environmental controls, knowledge of Saurian anatomy, and the skill to disable an experienced instructor without leaving evidence. How many beings on this station have those capabilities?" "The environmental systems can be accessed by any qualified maintenance technician," Corden replied. "Anatomical information is available in the Academy database. As for combat skills," he paused. "Someone who could do this to Vorth is extremely dangerous." The investigation expanded throughout the morning. Security teams interviewed every maintenance worker, reviewed access logs, and analyzed surveillance footage. They found evidence of routine maintenance activities, but nothing that pointed to a specific individual. Meanwhile, training continued as scheduled. Alex reported to Training Base C with his normal calm demeanor, showing no signs of fatigue or injury. Other recruits whispered among themselves about the attack on Vorth, but Alex participated in morning exercises as if nothing had happened. Ben watched his friend carefully during physical training. Alex moved normally, showed no bruises or cuts, and displayed the same quiet focus he always had. But there was something different in his eyes, a satisfaction that had not been there the day before. "Did you sleep well last night?" Ben asked during a water break. "Very well," Alex replied. Best night's sleep I've had since arriving at the academy. The substitute instructor for their group was Lieutenant Kess, a smaller but highly skilled warrior from the same species as Commander Tala. Unlike Vorth, Kess treated all recruits with professional respect and focused on technique rather than dominance displays. "I want you all to understand something," Kess announced to the group. "What happened to Instructor Vorth is being investigated thoroughly. Anyone with information about the incident should report it immediately to security." Alex raised his hand. What exactly happened to Instructor Vorth? He was attacked by an unknown assailant who caused severe injuries to his arm. The attacker showed considerable knowledge of both station systems and combat techniques. Several recruits glanced at Alex, remembering how Vorth had treated the human. Alex maintained his neutral expression and nodded as if this information was completely new to him. Nira, the young avian, found herself studying Alex throughout the day. She remembered the cold calculation in his eyes after Vorth had broken his nose, and how he had watched the instructor's every movement during subsequent training sessions. A terrible suspicion began forming in her mind. That evening, security teams interviewed selected recruits who had been training under Vorth. When they reached Alex, he answered their questions with the same calm directness he showed in all situations. "Did you have any conflicts with Instructor Vorth?" Security Chief Corden asked. "He was a demanding instructor who used physical discipline to teach lessons," Alex replied. "All the recruits found his methods challenging." "Were you angry about the incident where he broke your nose?" "Anger is not a useful emotion in military training. I learned from the experience and continued with my studies." "Where were you last night between 200 and 400 hours?" "Sleeping in my quarters. My roommate Ben Cross can confirm this." Corden made notes on his datapad. Alex's answers were technically truthful, but revealed nothing useful. The human seemed genuinely unconcerned about Vorth's injury, which could indicate either innocence or very good emotional control. The investigation continued for 3 days without producing any solid leads. The attacker had been too careful, too knowledgeable about station systems, and too skilled at avoiding detection. Whoever had hurt Vorth was still among them, and everyone knew it. The effect on Academy morale was immediate and dramatic. Other instructors began treating recruits with more caution, especially the humans. Word spread quickly that someone had managed to seriously injure the Academy's most feared instructor without leaving any evidence. Recruits from species that valued strength and dominance began looking at the humans with new respect. If one of the quiet Deathworlders could do this to Vorth, what else were they capable of? Alex seemed oblivious to the changed atmosphere. He continued training with the same steady focus, asking intelligent questions and helping other recruits with their studies. But careful observers noticed that other beings no longer dismissed him as weak or irrelevant. Commander Tala reviewed the investigation reports in her office, knowing that she would never find proof of what had really happened. The attack had been too well planned and executed by someone with advanced technical knowledge and combat training. She looked at the files of the human recruits, paying special attention to Alex Reed's background: military engineer, explosive specialist, tactical planning experience. Someone with those qualifications would certainly be capable of what had happened to Vorth. More importantly, someone with that background would understand the value of sending a message without being caught. Vorth's injury was not just revenge. It was a demonstration that humans were not to be underestimated or abused. The investigation was officially closed as unsolved, but Tala made a note in her personal files. The humans may be more dangerous than their Deathworld classification suggests. Recommend careful evaluation of their true capabilities. In the medical bay, Vorth slowly recovered from his injuries. His right arm had been rebuilt with cybernetic components, but he would never have full strength or coordination again. More importantly, his confidence had been shattered along with his bone. He no longer felt invincible, and he would never again assume that size and experience guaranteed victory. The lesson had been learned exactly as Alex had intended. 3 weeks after the incident, Instructor Vorth returned to active duty with a cybernetic replacement arm that gleamed silver against his dark green scales. The artificial limb functioned adequately for basic tasks, but everyone could see that his dominant hand trembled slightly during fine motor control exercises. The first day back was awkward for everyone involved. Vorth entered Training Base C with less of his usual commanding presence, and the recruits watched him with a mixture of curiosity and caution. His cybernetic arm clicked softly when he moved, a constant reminder of what had happened. "We will continue with standard combat training," Vorth announced, but his voice lacked the intimidating rumble it once carried. When he tried to demonstrate a grappling technique, his artificial fingers could not properly grip his opponent, and the demonstration became clumsy and ineffective. Alex watched these struggles with the same calm attention he gave to all lessons. He offered no sympathy and showed no satisfaction, treating Vorth with the same respectful distance he maintained with all instructors. To outside observers, the human seemed completely unaware that Vorth's condition might be connected to him in any way, but the other recruits were making connections. Stories about the attack had spread throughout the academy, growing more detailed with each telling. Everyone knew that whoever had hurt Vorth possessed advanced knowledge of anatomy, engineering, and combat techniques. Everyone also remembered how Vorth had brutalized Alex just days before the attack. The whispered conversation started small, but grew bolder as weeks passed. Alien recruits who had once mocked the humans now sought them out as training partners. Word spread that Deathworlders were not just tough, they were smart, and they did not forget insults or injuries. "I heard that humans can plan revenge for months without showing any signs," whispered Grix, a young reptilian whose species valued cunning above strength. "They study their enemies like scientists studying insects. My instructor says humans are the only species that actively hunts other predators on their homeworld," added Thek, whose rock-like people respected strength but feared intelligence. "They do not just survive dangerous creatures, they seek them out and kill them for sport." These stories were largely exaggerated, but they served a purpose. The Academy's culture began shifting from simple dominance displays to more careful evaluation of potential threats. Instructors who had previously used physical intimidation started relying more on professional authority and technical expertise. Nira found herself fascinated by this change. The small avian had always struggled with the Academy's emphasis on raw physical power, but now she saw how intelligence and planning could be more effective than brute force. She began spending more time with the human recruits, learning their approaches to tactical thinking. "How do you stay so calm when others try to intimidate you?" she asked Alex one day during weapons training. Alex was cleaning a plasma rifle with methodical precision, checking each component before reassembling the weapon. "Fear and anger make you react instead of thinking. Reactions are predictable. Thoughts are not. But don't you ever want to fight back immediately when someone hurts you?" "Immediate fighting is for immediate threats," Alex replied, testing the rifle's targeting system. When someone hurts you to make a point rather than to protect themselves, they are not an immediate threat. They are a problem that requires a solution. Nira tilted her head in the way her species did when confused. "What is the difference?" "Immediate threats require immediate responses. Problems require careful study and precise solutions." Alex looked at her with those calm eyes that had become legendary among the recruits. "The difference is that when you solve a problem correctly, it stays solved." Word of conversations like this spread through the Academy's informal networks. Alien recruits began to understand that humans approached conflict differently than most species. They did not fight for dominance or status. They fought to eliminate problems permanently and efficiently. This realization changed how everyone interacted with the human recruits. What had once been seen as weakness was now recognized as patience. What had looked like submission was actually careful observation and planning. Commander Tala noticed these changes during her regular inspections of training facilities. The atmosphere in the academy had become more professional and less brutal. Instructors were teaching technique instead of trying to break students' spirits. And recruits were learning cooperation along with competition. The humans seemed to be having a positive influence on academy culture, she mentioned to Dr. Zenith during one of their regular meetings. "Interesting that you phrase it that way," the insectoid physician replied. "Most of the other species would say the humans are making everyone afraid to act naturally." "Are you suggesting that brutal intimidation is natural behavior that should be encouraged?" "I am suggesting that fear-based respect may not be the same as genuine respect," Dr. Zenith said carefully. "Everyone is being more polite to the humans, but it is because they suspect the humans are capable of terrible revenge, not because they admire human virtues." Tala considered this perspective. "Does the motivation matter if the result is improved behavior and better training outcomes?" "Perhaps not in the short term, but fear-based relationships tend to become unstable over time. Meanwhile, Alex continued his studies with the same steady focus he had always shown. His tactical analysis scores were among the highest in the academy, and his practical engineering skills made him valuable for team exercises that required technical solutions. Ben noticed that other recruits now listened carefully when Alex offered suggestions during group planning sessions. Ideas that would have been dismissed as human thinking a month ago were now considered seriously and often adopted. "You realize that everyone thinks you're the one who attacked Vorth," Ben said one evening as they reviewed technical manuals in their quarters. "I know," Alex replied without looking up from his reading. "Doesn't that bother you?" "Why would it bother me? I have not done anything wrong, and the speculation does not affect my training or studies." Ben studied his friend's calm expression. Some people might find it disturbing to be suspected of something so serious. Alex finally looked up from his manual. "Ben, I came here to learn how to be an effective warrior in a galactic military context. Everything that has happened since we arrived has contributed to that learning experience. Why would I be disturbed by educational opportunities?" The way Alex said this made Ben realize that his friend viewed the entire situation, including Vorth's injury and the subsequent changes in how humans were treated, as part of a larger learning process. Whether Alex had actually attacked Vorth or not, he was certainly learning valuable lessons about fear, respect, and the strategic use of reputation. As the weeks passed, it became clear that the mysterious attack on Instructor Vorth had changed the Galactic Training Academy permanently. The culture of intimidation and physical dominance that had existed for generations was being replaced by something more sophisticated and, in many ways, more dangerous. The humans had taught everyone that true strength was not about being the biggest or loudest. True strength was about being smart enough to solve problems in ways that left no doubt about the outcome. 6 months after arriving at the Galactic Training Academy, Alex Reed stood with his fellow graduates in the main assembly hall. The ceremony was different from previous years. There was a palpable tension, mixed with respect that had not existed before the arrival of human recruits. All 12 humans had successfully completed the program, an achievement that surprised many alien observers who had expected the soft deathworlders to wash out early. More significantly, the humans had achieved some of the highest scores in tactical analysis and problem-solving exercises in Academy history. Commander Tala delivered the graduation address to the mixed species audience of new warriors. "You have all learned valuable lessons during your time here," she said, her 4 eyes scanning the assembled graduates. "You have learned about combat, strategy, survival, and cooperation. But most importantly, you have learned about understanding." Alex noticed how the other graduates looked at the human contingent. The mockery and dismissal that had characterized their early weeks had been replaced by careful respect. Conversation stopped when humans approached, not from fear exactly, but from a recognition that these beings thought differently than most species. "Understanding your allies is as important as understanding your enemies," Tala continued. "Each species brings unique strengths to our galactic community. The key to successful cooperation is recognizing and respecting those strengths, regardless of their form." After the formal ceremony, graduates mingled in the reception area, sharing contact information and discussing their future assignments. Alex found himself approached by many of his former classmates, beings who had once ignored him but now wanted to establish professional relationships. "I hope we serve together someday," said Nira, the young avian who had become genuinely friendly with the humans. "I learned more about tactical thinking from you than from any instructor." "The Academy taught us all valuable lessons," Alex replied diplomatically. "I am sure you will put your knowledge to good use wherever you are assigned." As the reception continued, Alex noticed a familiar figure approaching through the crowd. Instructor Vorth moved slowly, his cybernetic arm clicking softly with each step. The massive saurian looked older than he had 6 months ago, and his yellow eyes held a wariness that had not been there before. "Recruit Reed," Vorth said formally. "Congratulations on your graduation." "Thank you." "Instructor Vorth, I learned a great deal from your classes." The two beings stood facing each other, both aware that their conversation was being watched by many other graduates. Vorth's artificial fingers flexed unconsciously as he spoke. "I wanted to speak with you privately before you leave the academy," Vorth said quietly. They moved to a less crowded area near the large windows that looked out at the stars. For a moment, neither spoke as they watched ships moving between the orbital facilities. "I have been thinking about our time together," Vorth finally said. "I realize that I may have misjudged your species when you first arrived." "How so?" Alex asked with the same calm tone he had used throughout his training. "I thought breaking your nose would break your spirit. I believed that physical dominance was the only language that Deathworlders would understand." Vorth's cybernetic fingers clicked as he gestured toward the window. "I was wrong about many things." Alex studied the Saurian's reflection in the glass. "What do you think you understand now?" "I understand that humans do not respond to threats the way most species do. You do not submit to superior force, and you do not forget injuries. More importantly, you solve problems with a precision that most warriors lack." "Those are useful insights for someone in your position," Alex agreed. Vorth turned to face Alex directly. "I also understand that whoever attacked me in that training bay was not seeking simple revenge. They were teaching a lesson about consequences and respect. The precision of the attack, the careful planning, the lack of evidence, it was all designed to demonstrate capabilities without creating a larger conflict." Alex's expression remained neutral. "That sounds like a very sophisticated analysis." "It was a very sophisticated attack," Vorth replied. "Someone wanted me to understand that humans are not weak. They are patient. They are not submissive, they are calculating. And they are far more dangerous than their quiet behavior suggests." The two beings looked at each other in silence for several seconds. Finally, Vorth spoke again. "I want you to know that I learned those lessons very thoroughly. I will not make the same mistakes again with humans or any other species. Education is a valuable thing," Alex said simply. "I am glad you found the experience instructive." Vorth's artificial hand moved unconsciously to his damaged arm. "Indeed, very instructive." As the evening continued, graduation certificates were distributed along with assignment notifications. Alex learned that he had been selected for an elite joint species tactical unit that specialized in complex problem-solving missions. His reputation as both a brilliant strategist and someone not to be underestimated had clearly reached the right people. Ben had received a similar assignment, along with 3 other human graduates. The remaining humans were distributed among various galactic military branches, all with commendations for exceptional analytical thinking and leadership potential. "Looks like we will be working together for a while longer," Ben said as they compared their assignment orders. "Good," Alex replied. "Familiar partnerships are more efficient than constantly adapting to new team dynamics." As they prepared to leave the academy the next morning, Alex took a final walk through the training facilities. He stopped at Training Bay C, where he had first encountered Vorth's brutal teaching methods, and then continued to Auxiliary Training Bay 7, where those methods had been corrected. Everything looked normal and peaceful. New recruits would arrive soon to begin their own education in galactic military service. They would learn about combat, strategy, survival, and cooperation, just as Alex had, but they would also learn something else, something that was now part of the Academy's unofficial curriculum, that Deathworlders called humans were not to be judged by their quiet appearance or patient behavior. They were to be respected for their intelligence, feared for their precision, and never, ever underestimated. Alex smiled slightly as he walked toward the transport shuttle that would take him to his new assignment. The lesson had been learned exactly as he had intended, and it would be remembered long after he was gone. The galaxy was about to discover what humans could accomplish when they were treated as equals rather than curiosities. And Alex Reed looked forward to being part of that education process. Commander Tala watched the shuttle depart from her office window. In her files, she had marked the human recruits with a special notation: exceptional strategic value. Recommend careful integration and maximum utilization of capabilities. She had learned her own lessons about Deathworlders during the past 6 months. The most important lesson was that when humans decided to teach something, everyone involved would remember the education for the rest of their lives. As the shuttle disappeared among the stars, carrying its cargo of newly certified galactic warriors, Tala began planning for the next class of recruits. The Academy would continue its mission of training the galaxy's finest soldiers, but it would do so with a new understanding of what true strength really meant. The humans had changed everything, and the galaxy would never be the same.